teachers at Reddit, what's some behind the scenes drama you had to hide from your students? That the smelly kid smells so bad because he wears diapers. He was arped in a public bathroom as a child and has PTSD. Therefore he doesn't use the school bathroom. And the kid who spent all day Friday in the quiet room yelling and screaming was going insane because 10 minutes before he left for school that morning his social worker dropped by to tell him he'd be moving to a new foster home that night and that his current foster mom would have his stuff packed by the time school got out because he wouldn't be allowed back in the house. Working in an underprivileged school system with special ed emotionally impaired kids is tough, awesome, sad, rewarding. Throwaway. I'm getting a real kick out of responding to all my kids' "how's your day going coach and are you losing weight" questions. I just smile and reply great and yes, and I'm freaking out inside. Was just diagnosed with cancer. My mother was an office administrator at a subunit of our high school. My 10th grade year. They had to stop telling teachers when fire drills would be. There was an actual, small, very manageable fire in the cooking class thanks to a grilled cheese sandwich. Most of the students were evacuated correctly. But lots of teachers figured that since it wasn't a scheduled drill, it was just a test. The fire department tested the alarm every month, or an alarm malfunction. So they kept the kids in the room. Another office admin had to come over the intercom and announce teachers. Since there is very obviously a fire alarm going off, please evacuate the building as per your drill instructions. Edit. The teachers got in huge trouble. No one was hurt. And the girl didn't burn her next grilled cheese. Wow. If there was a fire drill at my work that I knew wasn't scheduled, I would assume it was a real fire and get the kids out. That's crazy. One of the students at our school has no idea that his dad has cancer and is going through chemo. Whoa. That was a depressing sentence to write out. I didn't know my dad had cancer the first time he had it. I don't think my teachers knew though. At least I knew about it the last time. He died this Wednesday. Edit. Thank you all for your support. It's been a tough couple days. And we're in for some just as tough times ahead. But it helps to have your support. I was having dinner with my co-workers yesterday and one of their sisters came. She's a teacher. Apparently a kid at her school committed suicide recently. And she or any other of the staff aren't allowed to talk about it. The kids all think he just died in his sleep. She was saying she was trying not to cry all day at work. That's awful to keep that from the students. We had a girl commit suicide in our senior year that a lot of us, including myself, were close to. I'd be furious if I was lied to about what happened. I fought for 3 months to keep my job. Thanks to a crazy incompetent principal and a power-hungry department chair. They would demand that I change a lesson plan immediately before class. Then randomly observe and ask why I wasn't better prepared. The best example. My principal demanded that I stop showing movies in my class. The twist? IT was a film studies elective. My students were taken aback by the fact that we were suddenly reading Frankenstein in film studies one day. And I couldn't tell them it's because their head principal literally said, "I don't believe there is such a thing as a great movie." This entire post makes me want to scream. Rumor was our DARE officer had several DUIs. DARE might be the worst and least effective program in schools. Reminds me of my English teacher last year who would tell us anything. I had a teacher like that. But she didn't say any of that stuff until the last day of our senior year in high school. Most people stayed home. We went in. Had this long, enjoyable conversation with the hot young French teacher about weird Japanese tentacle PRN and her clit ring. To be young again. I caught a girl snorting coke from the bathroom counter. Also, I teach some students with severe autism. One of the things we do is wait until the halls are empty to walk them simply because they are so violent. We wear Kevlar PPE. There are only 4 of them. And most kids don't even know they are at the school. What sets them off to be so violent? Do they actually bring weapons, or are the Kevlars for things like sharpened pencils? And finally, why is this happening at a public school? Shouldn't they have their own facilities? I don't mean to sound ignorant, I am genuinely interested. Not a teacher but a kid brought a shotgun to school and before he did anything he broke down and cried to his homeroom teacher. Our favorite teacher who taught home ec cooking was the headmaster's wife. She woman taught up until last Christmas. Then took a week's leave before we broke up for the holidays. Come January, back in school, we find out she died. She had cancer for half a year and we never knew. The whole school was a bit shaken. One of the teachers my mum works with had 2 daughters. One had a very severe heart problem and needed open heart surgery. The other booked to go to Australia and was hesitant to go due to her sister's bad health. The sister encouraged her to go and said that she'd try and schedule the surgery for when she returned in a month. The daughter who went to Australia died in a quad biking accident on her 3rd week. So this teacher had to cope with one daughter dying at her side and another daughter who died on the other side of the world. How short we are on money. The school I work at is very strict about paper, for example. So when my students complain about having front and back pages, I pretend that I have some green vibe in me. Plus what happens in the teacher's lounge. If they knew how childish some of my colleagues are, they'd lose any trace respect that might have had before. My school never hid anything. School 1. Where I want for middle school. Built a $500 000 football field. Twice. Almost immediately after one another. School 2. My high school. Auctioned off building to the cheapest bidder. The roof was Ed. They spent $2 million to begin with. And then $2 million more for a new one. Funny thing is, both of these schools are in rural nowhere, Ohio. I want to answer on behalf of my 11th grade English teacher who was going through a divorce and a custody battle for his 4-year-old daughter during the time he spent teaching us. Some days it was very apparent that something was really eating away at him. This teacher had a very distinct personality. You could tell when he was off. I'm sure it was an immensely difficult time for him. Especially because he continued to teach us in what was one of the more memorable classes I've ever taken. I didn't find out the details of what was going on until after I graduated and he left the school. My 3rd grade teacher was one of the nicest, most kind-hearted people I have met in my life, and one day after work she went home to find her son dead on the couch from a heroin overdose. She never was the same and never taught again after that. Very sad. 2 teachers had sex at my school. One was married. I didn't like either of them and was glad that they both were fired. Edit. I did not expect for so many people to read this. I liked all the stories you have told me. Apparently this happens quite a bit and usually the teachers are not fired. Similar story. 2 of my old high school English teachers were cheating on their husbands for years. Apparently. With each other. Cat jumped out of the bag when they both got divorces and had a lesbian wedding. Last I knew they both still teach there. Not teacher. Mom was administrator at the school I went to. Most days. Because she worked late. Every night I would just chill in the computer lab. Hitting up miniclip like a mofo. So I'm there one night. And I look over my shoulder. And I see my teacher talking to the head teacher. Think nothing of it, of course. It was my teacher's first year at the school. And it was pretty clear to everyone there that she had no clue what she was doing. Couldn't handle the class. Nor did she know the subject matter. Next morning. Head teacher has a meeting with us that our teacher has been fired. And that the teacher we had last year, who was currently on a 2-year trip in New Zealand surfing, was coming back. PL. Doctor, I watched my teacher get fired. 1. Turns out one of the teacher's coaches and his wife are nudists and all those summer trips were to a nudist colony. A student was doing door-to-door fundraising. Rang the bell. He answered in the nude. She spread the word at school. 2. A paid teacher was cheating on her husband, another teacher at the school, with the boys' soccer coach. 3. The APU's history teacher and biology teacher were in the midst of a divorce. She had already gone back to using her maiden name, so not many students were aware when they referred to their Thai ex-wife or asshole ex-husband that they were, in fact, referring to the teacher 4 doors down the hall. Why would he open the door completely naked? What a dope. Joining to the not a teacher. But, once upon a time my friend's classmate had to leave the classroom a little earlier after the school supervisor spoke profanity with the teacher. Of course her classmates started to laugh and say jokes about that girl did something wrong to be punished and laughing at the situation. But all lasted until the teacher had enough and angrily dropped the info. The girl's father killed her mother and siblings. Being she the one survivor for being in school at that time. All the class, including my friend, started to cry and feel like. And yes, the murder was even on TV news. Where I went to school, all the drama was out in the open with the teachers or staff. Like for instance, the financial secretary at my high school was caught embezzling money from the athletic and theater departments. $159,000 stolen in over 3 years. Edit. Is it weird that I'm oddly impressed? I became friends with a teacher. And after I graduated high school and there was no conflict of interest, he invited me to his birthday the following year. Of course there were heaps of my old teachers and some new ones from lower year levels I'd never seen before. One of the new ones was talking about how scared one girl made her, because she wrote a really detailed creative writing story about a girl with serious mental problems and what it's like. She gave quotes and basically said that now she's read this. A ton of the girl's behavior in class makes sense. At the time I was about 90% sure I knew who she was talking about. So that was really weird and kinda creepy. Hope the teacher talked to her about it. Or something. I teach computer science at a college. One of our recent graduates faked her degree. I know that sounds crazy. She failed one of my colleagues' courses recently which should have kept her from graduating. But this girl had a friend in our registrar's office who substituted the course for something entirely unrelated. The substitution must be approved by me since I'm her advisor. I said no. But she somehow still got her diploma. The substitution is on her degree audit with no record of who approved it. Our department has since been in a long struggle with the registrar's office over who permitted the substitution. Whoever did this should be fired. Well, I know exactly who did it. But there's no paperwork to prove it. So the world will keep spinning and somewhere out there an employer will hire this girl and be extremely disappointed. Edit. Grammar, and I still don't think I did it right. 2 of my high school teachers hooked up. They both taught history. One was a pretty big guy. The other was a really skinny gal. Both mid-40s. It was cute. But against the rules I think. I only knew because I saw them holding hands together at the grocery store. I grew up in a pretty small town. One where everyone knows everyone and their dog's business, so it's hard for anything to be kept quiet. Our middle school principal, when I was a student, who was always such a level-headed and nice guy, called the entire school into the assembly hall late one year and made us sit there while he dropped the school's entire collection of calculators out of a box onto the floor and proceeded to kick them around the floor, yelling at us for being so destructive with them and costing the school so much money. I remember the other teachers sitting behind him bugging their eyes out but not saying anything at all. That was the beginning of a lot of outbursts. Some aimed at students, some at teachers, some at the entire school. We went off for summer break and when we came back we were informed he'd died of a massive brain hemorrhage. Turns out he had a nasty brain tumor that he'd hidden from the entire faculty that had caused the huge change in his personality. Not teacher. Daddies. Works with special ed students. Bitchy teacher was literally throwing cups at kids for snack time. My dad got real ed. Took her outside. Scolded her for acting like a terrible person. Then went to his boss and informed her about the incident. He had to take over the class while the teacher got called up. Short sentences. Save time. See world. My 7th grade science teacher, who really propelled me on my life course of becoming a science teacher, was gay. Unfortunately, she worked and I attended a small Catholic K-8 school. She loved Xena Warrior Princess. We saw her around our small town with her best friend. Always with her best friend. All the other teachers at this small school must have known. But it would have been scandalous if the parents found out or if she ever dared to share with us who she was as a person. One day she cried because a kid had written homophobic things about another kid on a bathroom stall. I mean full on bald. I'll never forget sitting there in class and just searching in my head as to why she would react in this way. In hindsight, I can't imagine what she was going through not being able to share who was. Older me just wants to go back in time and hug her to tell her it will be alright. Younger me didn't quite comprehend the scope of pain she must have felt. Every single morning I have to hide from my first period class just how badly I need to poop. My IT teacher from high school approached me once while I was taking parts inventory for one of his classes since I was his TA, to ask me how to stay positive when a family member has cancer. Backstory. 2 months prior to my senior year, my teacher's daughter had gotten leukemia and was in really bad shape. Now, this teacher always has a happy attitude and loves teaching IT. And this event really brought him down. Anyways, I explained to him that everything was going to be alright and that his daughter was well taken care of by the professionals at UMC here in Tucson. Hell, if they were able to get Gabrielle Giffords back on her feet after the shooting, they can help his daughter get through her leukemia. What started out as advice turned out to be a pep talk in which he relayed to his daughter, ultimately giving her the persistence to fight her cancer. She's been cancer-free since fall 2013. TL. Doctor gave a teacher a pep talk on how to deal with a loved one that was stricken with cancer. I remember once in 6th grade, me and a bunch of other kids were acting all rowdy until the substitute teacher had enough and called out one of the kids for his behavior. Josh, or W.E. his name was. I forgot. How would your mother feel if she knew you were acting like this? John kinda just stopped and looked at her with a blank face and said, "My mother's dead." Without missing a beat, the teacher replied, "Well, why don't you just get a new one?" The whole class went berserk, kids swearing at the teacher, flipping tables, running out of the classroom, throwing at the teacher, and while everybody, myself included, went ape, Josh kinda just sat at his desk and started twirling his pencil. Anyways, principal got involved and managed to quiet everything down and made sure not a word of the incident reached the rest of the school. TLDR. Kids acts up. A kid found a sex toy in the storage closet of our 8th grade math teacher's class. Let's just say she wasn't quite as bitchy from then on out. We'd bet on the Super Bowl. If you lost, Kevin would be transferred to your class. A chronic illness that made me nauseous pretty much all the time and occasionally very dizzy. I generally hid it really well while teaching, and my co-workers were able to help me out when things got really bad. I'm no longer teaching. It was always a temporary thing, and doing better now, but I still don't know how I made it through that year as well as I did. I work in special education, and you would not believe how much I have to battle with administration and teachers for them to participate in everyday activities, such as be in a certain class, an after-school sports team, go to a dance, etc. The kids have no idea the arguments, emails, phone calls, writing up extra behavior contracts, etc. I go through for them. But I wouldn't have it any other way. Don't mess with my kids. Edit. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger. The teacher that molested kids didn't come out till I was in 5th grade, but when it did, women from college and above were coming out of the woodwork to say he had molested them, and no one believed them or the school covered it up. Reading the court transcripts, the allegations were true and the school had known about it since the 90s but never really did anything to stop him. From what I've heard from parents and teachers, when kids in 4th grade were evaluated, they would give him 80% boys, 20% girls. and the girls were typically the smallest and least developed in the grade. However, a lot can change over the summer between 4th and 5th grade or even during the year. Inevitably, one girl would be chosen and he would molest her throughout the school year. Kai's classroom was designed to allow him maximum discrepancy. All the teachers knew and talked about it. He was the only male black teacher and the white female staff, which contributed largely to him getting away with it. I guess this is semi-relevant, but I used to buy weed from and get high with an elementary school teacher. She was a great teacher, always working on lesson plans and grading papers. She just liked to unwind and relax. She is a single mother of 2 kids with a mortgage, and teacher's salary couldn't afford to buy weed, so she sold it to get free weed. Also, her kid's father was shot and killed a couple years ago during winter break. She said it was hard for her teach. Her class had no idea. She moved 1,500 miles away to get away from all the drama and go on with her life. That I agree with them when they tell me they think a teacher is weird or creepy. Yeah, I think so too. Probably going to get buried. But I lecture at a university as a side job to my profession. 2 classes or so per semester. So, right before the winter semester, my father passed away suddenly while playing tennis. He was 65. I was 28 at the time. And I will never forget how hard it was to teach. Not only teach but be engaging, humorous and passionate about my subject. Behind my eyes, I was crippled with depression. It took me until this past year to get over that hump. May not seem like a lot given the stories here, but I was surprised I made it through the semester. And the year. Then the following year. I have never before had to put on an empty smile so hard in my life. But end of the day, it is a job. A job I am paid to do. It is a job I happen to love. OHH, I have one for this. It wasn't really behind the scenes since everyone kinda guessed what was happening. In high school, we had 2 math teachers. One algebra, girl, and one for gym, guy. We always teased them about being together, and whenever they talked to each other there was always this adorable smile between them that showed us they liked each other. One day after gym class, the guy teacher tells us he is resigning from his job. He tells us that there are some rules that he just doesn't agree with. Turns out, it is against the rules to have a relationship with a co-worker, and he ended up quitting so they could be together. This was 5 years ago and there are some rumors of them getting married. A lot of the teachers don't get along with each other. When you're a kid you think they're a super team. I've lost my dad in IKEA, please help. Are you in the right thread? The 9th of November 2001, freshman year of high school. All teachers were instructed not to tell any students what happened. My English teacher thought it was really ed up and sat us all down and explained everything to us. Surreal moment. Not a teacher, but found out some English teacher at my high school left his wife and kids for one of his students. My mom was a teacher. They have office politics like anyone else. They have cliques, exclude people, and even behave like bullies. My AP chemistry teacher in high school had a 12-year-old daughter with leukemia. She would drive 5 hours every weekend for treatment. And I'm sure it was on her mind at all hours of the day. But she was still one of the best teachers I've ever had. It wasn't a secret from any of the students. But not once did she let it affect her work. Had to create a throwaway for this one. Here it goes. I hate the middle school math teacher on my team. She is the most vapid, self-absorbed bitch ever. She's loud and obnoxious. She is generally disliked by everybody on our team and in our school. She has a few friends at work. I don't know how they tolerate her. I'm sure a lot of them put up with her because they don't want to deal with her attitude. The tension in our team meetings is palpable. You can tell every time she opens her mouth. The rest of us just want her to shut up. I'm pretty sure she's getting switched with another math teacher next year. So, here's the thing. None of the kids know that the rest of us can't stand her. They think we all get along just fine. And she does get moved next year. We will tell the kids that it's because the school thought she would be better as a high school teacher. She's not a bad teacher or anything. She's just obnoxious. We've dealt with her for 5 years. It's time for someone else to have their turn. This entire thread is hitting me like that Nationwide commercial. I was expecting funny drama. Like teachers sleeping around and boom. Got heavy. And I'm sad. And damn, this is messed up.